Okay, Lowell Shepherd here of the Never Too Late Academy. Thank you to the members podcast. This podcast in its full form will appear behind the paywall for our members, the annual and the monthly subscribers. And there'll be an abridged version on the YouTube channel, and we may even get some shorts out of it as well. I'm really excited about the podcast today because, and this has happened on fairly short notice, because an old mate of mine, when I say old, he and I are both old, but we've known each other probably for 10, 15 years. And I would describe him as a soulmate. He's certainly a hero. He inspires me. We kind of think in similar veins, but with a different vocabulary and a different set of motifs. And so he is a true never too later. And I'm thrilled to have him. His name is Anthony Willoughby. I was about to call him Sir Anthony Willoughby because in my mind, he has that kind of nobility to him in terms of being an adventurer, explorer. He founded a company called I Will Not Complain, which is part of his philosophy, which has a adventure center on the Great Wall of China, doing leadership training, management training. And now he's got the Nomadic School of Business. And we're just going to have a conversation about what it means to navigate through life, setting goals, hitting hardships, etc. And then we've got Esteban here as well, who's come to us from the world of Red Bull and all of those exciting things. I was telling Anthony yesterday, Esteban, of how you were involved in the project of the highest skydive from a hot air balloon. And so no doubt he may ask you something about that. Anyways, good day to you all. Thanks all for joining. And welcome, Anthony. You're in London?
I'm not actually in London. I'm in a very frosty part outside London, about 120 miles away. But it's a really frosty and wonderfully beautiful morning out there. So,
well, hey, well, why don't we start off by self-describe yourself in a minute or two, Anthony?
I think that's sort of difficult. I think always being the outsider is a part of it. I mean, I was brought up in Africa, in the Sudan and Egypt, and from sort of being in game parks with my parents being told we're charged by rhinoceroses, or my mother sort of shaking pepper out of the window thinking it would confuse the rhino, and keeping pet scorpions and, running around bare feet and just having that life of adventure, to you literally within a month being in a boarding school in England when I remember the first morning was, someone came dashing after me, "You haven't done your hospital bed corner." And I sort of went, "God, what's that?" For the next 10 years, I spent my life trying to fit in and get my hospital bed corners right. And, I was so out of step that in the school corps, they made me the photographer. And so I've always sort of felt that side, always wonderfully being outside, thank God. And I like to believe that my brain has not been damaged too much by education and conformity. So it's always been out there. And, fortunately at school, my housemaster said, "Anthony, let's get one thing quite clear. You are much, much too stupid to go to university." I went, wow, freedom. And that then got me the opportunity to go off to America, where I hitchhiked, and I just suddenly saw what freedom was. And really my whole life has been around, how do we enjoy the freedom of choice to shape our own destiny? I mean, I think we really are the first generation since our ancestors left the cave to have genuine freedom. We haven't got those pressures on us. So how do we create an identity that is based on our core values, that is based on what we want to do? And in my book, In Search of Inspiration, I wrote, my quest in life is to understand what I need to discover about myself, the laws of Mother Nature and human nature, if I want my freedom of choice to give me a sense of identity that my parents and ancestors had. And I think this is really what I spent a lifetime doing, is in search on a quest to try to understand myself and other people. And that has taken me to Japan. It's taken me on different journeys. But I think we really, really need a quest in life. We've got to have something that is bigger, and we use the different avenues. And that's what I love about you, Lowell. You used setting up water all over the world, to changing people's perceptions, to enriching people's lives. But that was just another avenue for you to feel a sense of purpose and identity. And now it's discovering what you're doing. So I think we choose different vehicles, shall we say, to keep our levels of enthusiasm. So sorry, that was a very long thing, but
No, and there's lots to explore from that. But one thing you struck me about the freedom, and in my words, self-reliance. My work with Hope, providing clean water to the extreme poor, was really about helping people become self-determining, and that beyond the basic need to survive, I think the next yearning is to have choice, be self-reliant, self-determining, and to see the transformation in people's lives and in their eyes when finally they move beyond survival mode and they were imprisoned by poverty. Now with just access to clean water and the health and the prosperity that would bring, now they could be self-determining. And the cool thing is, while we had to help them get access to water, and that requires a bit of money, the fact is you don't need money to be self-determining ultimately. And you're proof of that, because you've hitchhiked around the world on a low budget. And remember what I think it was Arthur Frommer said, going first class is second rate. You experience a lot less of the world.
When I saved enough money when I was 22, I did actually take the Trans-Siberian Express to Japan. So in 1973, I do remember arriving in Yokohama by boat and wondering, what am I going to do next? And that, I think, is that, and gradually meeting people who invited me in and gave me that sense of hope. And that's really, I think, been the story of my life, that people are actually going to be nice to me. I think it is so important. But just building on your story of giving people hope, I mean, in 1988, when I set up I Will Not Complain, I said I want to set up the best organization in the world to unlock trust and willpower. That's what I wanted to do, because I thought if people trust themselves, they will trust others. Then they will be determined to actually move forward. And, I'm sure you've got your own 3 words, but mine is really curiosity, passion, and courage. We have to be curious about life. We then have to be passionate about what we're curious about. And then we actually have to see it through. I mean, so many people buy cans of wolf spray for sheep. I'm going to. And it's just trying to impress. It's never actually to do it.
Yes, absolutely. I love those 3 words, and words are powerful. So tell us about, you just mentioned I Will Not Complain, IWNC, is I tried to figure out for years what the IWNC meant, and then I found out from you. So why that name? Like, where does that come from?
Well, all my life has been pretty unplanned. Let's go to Japan, let's go here. And I'd been off to Papua New Guinea in 1981, and I'd sort of met the people. I met the ambassador to Tokyo, Joseph Nombri, who I got to know extremely well, an amazing Chimbu warrior and chief. And basically, I'd seen this book called From the Fly to Sepik Rivers. So I thought, wow, that looks fun. Why don't we go and walk from the Fly to the Sepik Rivers across Papua New Guinea? It's about 190 miles straight through the forest and across the backbone of Papua New Guinea. The mountains went that way. So I sat down with him. We had quite a few South Pacific breweries, beers in in the embassy in Mita. And I said, look, here's an aeronautical map. Which route should I go? So he drew this line across the map. And what I saw on the map, that there were villages. So I thought, well, clearly enough villages, they're close enough. We don't really need any food, but we probably won't have much wine. So all we set off with was 24 bottles of wine and no food. And in my naivety, we didn't even have a tent. I had bought a tarpaulin and we thought that would do. But anyway, shall we say, it didn't quite go to plan. And there were 3 of us. One is now my wife, Victoria. The other is my best man called Paul. And there was another fellow called Philip. And Philip just on day one started complaining. And he started complaining about the weather. He got bitten by a mosquito or something and he's going to die. And, let's change. And he just went around everybody saying, I think Willoughby's lost. I think the porters are going to steal. This man had so little faith in human nature. He had a padlock on his backpack. And what I saw is that when you go into a place like that, someone who is a coward, and fundamentally complaining is cowardice. It's not actually dealing with it or accepting the responsibility of what you're going to do in life. It's a bit like when your boat fills up in water, you can start blaming everybody but yourself. I mean, no, we don't blame. Things go wrong. That's why we have a life. So he just absolutely undermined me in every way he could. And I just saw that anybody who complains kills morale. So when I got back to Tokyo, Michael Jardine kindly invited me to climb a 7,500 meter mountain in Western China without quarters and oxygen. And that's when I had to sort of train myself. I knew nothing about mountaineering. I'm not a mountaineer. And so I thought we'd go and climb Africa's 5,000 meter peaks, Kilimanjaro, Kenya, and Stanley. And sitting on my father going, because he climbed in the Himalayas, going, well, how do we keep complainers off trips? We said, right, we'll get a list. So I created a list, the I will not complain declaration, which is, I still carry with me here. And, it is, I will not complain if I get eaten or trodden on by animals, if extra porters are employed to carry wine, if I discover I've got prima donna sentences, and if I complain, I realize I can be sent home. Well, that was really, we had T-shirts printed and everybody who came with me to Africa had to wear this T-shirt. And it created a glorious sort of ethos among the group because someone said, it's cold this morning. Is that a complaint? No. Just an observation. And, it really, I realize it's my ethos in life. Anything we set out to do, if we're going to do something, if we complain, we're going to be completely undermined. We're undermining ourselves. We're undermining everybody else. How can we lead if we complain? So that's, again, Absolutely. Another rather long story answer to your question.
So then that gave rise to the company.
That did,
you began to do this professionally.
Yeah, what I saw is people who came with me on these journeys actually were really sort of improving in their lives and being more successful, and it just created a lovely ethos. So I actually thought, instead of selling wallets and briefcases, which I was in those days, that I would set up an outdoor training school to sort of take people on these expeditions and give them that ethos and get them to sign the document and get them to realize what life was. And that went from Chiba on a field in Chiba with a portable loo and a tent to having this glorious training center at the foot of the Great Wall. Why I was allowed to have it inside a UNESCO park, I have no idea. But it was just brilliant to bring people to the wall, to think about the metaphors of what are the barriers, where are they in their life, how do you use that metaphor, and get people talking. And that's what I realized is really what people wanted to do, to have conversations around context.
Yeah. I love the tone of the I will not complain. I never knew they all had to wear T-shirts. One of your compatriots, journalist Oliver Burkeman, who you may have read, one of my favorite ones I've been reading of late, he said something that really gave me a charge and energy in a recent article where he said the ability to endure discomfort is a superpower. And basically that's what you encourage people to do. Engage your superpower, release it, because complaining can be debilitating. But let me just ask you about, there's the complaining side, which you relate to cowardice, but the other thing related to cowardice is, or the opposite is perhaps courage. So there's the fear issue. How on your programs what's your philosophy of fear? What role does fear play? And let me just, invite Esteban to comment too, from his Red Bull experience, organizing some pretty hair-raising events like you must, Esteban, meet people, athletes, risk takers. Like, are they just numb to fear, or have you observed a process they go through before they jump out of a hot air balloon in subspace?
Yeah, totally. And to be honest, I think, especially for professionals, I think fear never really goes away, and at least not on the smart ones. But what they do know is that they know how to handle it. They know how to actually use fear to their advantage. But it's more like the people who will actually not be able to like overcome fear, or not be able to actually use fear like on a positive way. Those are usually like the people who might actually struggle with issues, or then might actually, when they do have an experience that is like too overwhelming for them, that's when it might end up being like quite a negative experience. But I realized actually one of the key differences, with professionals is that they actually use the fear on a positive way to actually. They have to. It's like, especially when you fly, I always said that like you should never lose the fear, because if you lose the fear completely of flying, then you might start making mistakes. So you always have to be not fearful, but you always have to be aware of the danger or the dangerous things that might happen. But then it comes to your professional experience and career to use that fear in a positive way, to just be careful, to just be mindful at all times, and to actually use that on a more like on a positive way.
Yeah, so Anthony, if you were coaching some Red Bull athletes doing something that appears quite outrageous to the rest of us, how would you coach them in terms of the scariness aspect?
I think it really is, the whole thing is, why are you doing it? Why is a 70-year-old bloke like you doing something as stupid as sailing around? Why is someone as stupid as me still running off to Mongolia, lying in front of horsemen to get the best photograph? Why am I still believing that I can unlock something in people to have greater belief through the metaphors I use? I think really what we've got to realize is fear is a fascinating concept. My father had an expression, a little bit of danger keeps you up to scratch. And I think we have to welcome fear, but I think it is within reason. I mean, I've done 97 skydives. I'm terrified each time, but it formats the brain. So I actually think the level of risk compared to the reward of myself, of making me realize I'm human. And I think this is really where you've got the physical risk and you've got the business risk. I mean, business is such a waste of time. I mean, it really is, talking about leaders of this, that, and the other. Why are they doing what they're doing? Who are they? How do they perceive their personal wealth? And I think the greatest risk for most people is just being honest and human. And I think that is the greatest fear. And they think if they beat their chests and make lots of noise, then they're being a great leader and they're not being frightened. I mean, there's a lovely expression someone told me once. The first person to raise their voice has lost the argument in Japan, in a meeting, whereas, some foreigners think they're banned on the table, therefore they have created fear and intimidated. I think it's fear is another fascinating concept to discuss at length. Yeah, I love being frightened. I mean, I welcome it. It's a fabulous feeling, but not to be stupid. I mean, and I think we suddenly in life get to a rail that we just want this level of to sort of make ourselves alive. Just a very brief sort of thing. I met someone who used to take live fish over from Asia to Canada, to America, to New York, and they used to die quite often. So they came up with an idea. They put a shark in with the fish, and that kept the fish alive.
Interesting.
I just think the idea that we can live life without danger is just this naivety. I mean, the other thing, I spoke to my father, how should I educate my children? And he simply said, make sure they play sports at which they can get seriously hurt. I think, we've got to realize, we've got to embrace that if we want to have a mind that is vital, that is able to lead, we've got to lead by example, and that is dealing with fear through enjoyment, but it's not being stupid.
Yeah. So, and the people listening to this podcast are never too laters. They're part of the academy. They've joined it, and the theme in the academy is acquiring the courage and the tools to realize a high stakes dream. So the fear comes into it a lot, but you also use another word a lot, and I'd like to explore it, is metaphors. There's power in metaphors. So tell us about the important metaphors in your life. You obviously have the center and the Great Wall of China. That's a metaphor, but take us up.
That, to be honest, is gone. One morning, the Chinese walked in and said, "Out."
Right.
But we had it for 20 years, so it was an incredible experience. Yes. The use of metaphor, I can talk about it. First of all, I thought all you needed was trust and willpower. I thought if you had that, you could be successful. So then we had these training programs, and 10 years of doing it on the Great Wall, I remember in particular. People kept saying, where do I fit in my life? Where do I belong? Where am I recognized? Who am I? Why won't people see something in me as a leader? So I started then to use the Great Wall as a metaphor. And I started to get people, where are you on the wall? Are you above it? Are you below it? Are you defending it? Are you attacking it? And instantly people could start to talk about this. So they started to talk about the wall and where it was in their life or in their business. And I thought, this is fascinating, because when I'd been in Papua New Guinea and I'd come back and I'd asked the Papua New Guinea ambassador, what is the single most important thing in your life? And he said, it is my territory. And he spent hours talking about his culture, how from the age of 3 he knew what to protect and he knew who he was. And I thought, wow, I have no idea what my territory was. It was a couple of bars in Tokyo where women were friendly and a small BMW. And that was my territory. So I became fascinated by this concept of territory. And that's to some extent that sent me off on my journeys. But what I then realized, Thomson and Reuters they were joining up, and a chap called Dan Vedetto, who ran Thomson in Tokyo, he said, look, I've got Reuters team coming together. They don't know anything about each other. So I can't, it's not a team building that you normally do. So I said, well, can I try something? He said, yeah, of course you can. So
Sorry, everyone, we're having some technical difficulties, but we will be back soon.
Indigenous maps and then the corporate maps. And what I've done is I have looked at all of the commonalities of what I've seen on the maps, and I really simplified things down to 7 icons that I think people need to know in their life, because without that, they really don't know what their why or what their purpose is. And the 3 things are really, what are you hunting in your life? And that is seeking. It's not, hey, I want a Ferrari. It's what are you seeking? What do you want on your gravestone? You know, what do you actually, if that's what you're seeking, what do you have to grow in yourself? What do you have to learn? What's the knowledge that you actually really need? What do you have to, and then what do you have to protect? So the first thing is really understanding. Thank you very much.
You okay?
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. So what I realized is there are these three icons of what are you hunting, seeking? What is it that inspires and motivates you in your life? And, you know, it's not sailing the Pacific. That is just part of who you are or what you've been doing. It's not sort of the action. It's what is it? And therefore, what do you have to grow in yourself? What is that experience, wisdom, and knowledge you need? And then what do you have to protect in yourself? That vulnerability. So I realized once you know what you're hunting, protecting, and growing, and this has come from asking people to see the maps and going through them, then you need to know what are the rivers and the mountains and the swamps in your life. and the rivers of expertise that you need to cross. The mountains might be the challenges. It might be people you need to move. It might be fears you need to move. It might be fears you need to attain. And I discover that everybody can draw a river. And to some it is protection, to others it is challenges, to others it is security, to others it is nourishment. But once people can start to talk about their rivers, the mountains, and their swamps in their life, then they can start to have a proper conversation about what they want to do. And then you ask them, so if that's what you want to achieve and these are your challenges, who do you really, really need around your fire? Who's around your fire at the moment? And then, so those are the 7 icons. And then once you've got people around your fire, so what do they need to bring? Is it wisdom, knowledge, and experience? Is it resources and weapons? Or is it that sort of shield of emotional support? So once people can start to articulate that, then they can start to understand their why and their purpose. And then people can start to understand. And I'm doing this with children as young as 8, people who are retiring, and at homeless centres in areas of the UK. And and also with billionaires in America. So just the use of these metaphors seems to tap into something that has been with us. And I believe really for the first 99.9% of human existence, I think I was saying, we've known our territory. And therefore our brains are designed to have the context of understanding things and problems we're solving because they've always been physical. And through civilization, we've just confused people because we've split power, wealth, and status. And when we split power, wealth, and status, then we don't quite know where we fit in. And what I love about the nomads that I've been with, and which I've really been now trying to get across, is they have the power of their personality. As do both of you. You're proud of your personality. You're proud of who you are. You have a personality, so you have that power. What do you have? You have the wealth. Your wealth is your life experience. And, that is what it is, and that's what you value. That's why you make your decisions based on your... And then you have the status that you know how your contribution is valued. Think of those thousands of people, Lowell, who know how you have helped them value their lives, and you know that yourself. So that's why I think it's so powerful what you have. You have the power of your personality, you have the wealth of your life experience, and you have the status of who you contribute. Therefore, you have an identity. And that's what I think everybody actually needs, is to know the power of their personality, the wealth of the life experience, and the status of how they contribute. And I'm sure, Esteban, you know exactly the same thing. You've decided to move away from what you've been doing for Red Bull, all very sexy and status, but it doesn't necessarily give you your heart that you feel is really important. So that's how you use the metaphor to create the conversation and the continuity and the trust. And that trust then leads to clarity and visualization and to courage as to why people are doing something.
So in our private off-the-air conversation yesterday, you referred to the high net worth individuals, the billionaires in the States you're working with, mapping, using metaphors, etc. But you're talking with them about, was it the phrase, full-hearted prosperity?
Full-hearted prosperity, yeah.
So
it's not my expression. It's actually an amazing bloke called Don, who has got an extraordinary practice working with ultra-high net worth individuals. And he has just seen that they've got to rethink what wealth is. They've got to rethink what prosperity is, and they've got to fill their hearts. And I think now there's a lot of neuroscience that we've got different hearts in our bodies and how they all relate to each other. And he's really trying to set up an academy that unlocks full-hearted prosperity and what it really means. I think Lowell and Esteban, I think you'd have a fantastic conversation with him about what does he really mean to be rich, to really, really be wealthy. from in your heart. And if you can be that, then you can start affecting the world.
Yeah. And Tim Ferriss refers to it as the new rich. It's not rich in money, but rich in time and opportunity and being self-determining. And I think the pandemic has actually opened up, widened the horizons for people, that they don't have to be locked in a cubicle into a time box each day. They can actually realize a better future for themselves. I've been exploring lately the definition of a never too later. People ask me, what is a never too later? And the never too later is a term my brother first came up with. He was the first one to use it. And as we explored it, we realized it's not really age specific. It is, I'm now giving it another name. It's fourth culture. Third culture kids, you may recall, Anthony, was a term that academics came up with in the 80s out of concern for initially missionaries' kids who were living in different countries and they weren't at home in their host country completely. And they were misfits back in their home country. And so they became a third culture kid. And the attitude was like, oh, poor kids. Yeah. My wife is a third culture kid. And she grew up in international school. And I think that's one of the reasons I fell in love with her, is that she was different in the most amazing of way because she was borderless. And so, and the main index of third culture kids was the growth of international schools. Now, with what I'm calling the fourth culture, not fourth culture kid, but fourth culture people, who are people like third culture, they're borderless, but they've been fueled by technology because now they can work anywhere. They can be digital nomads. And the pandemic has opened up the possibility for them to be released from having to think of a single income stream as well. I think that we live in an amazing age of opportunity. And the index for the fourth culture is not international schools, but it's revenue streams generated by digital activities. Just use YouTube as one example. 10 years ago, there were 800 monetized channels on YouTube, channels that were making money for the creators. Today, there's 20 million monetized channels. But more revealing than that is 10 years ago, there were 5 million active channels, meaning they were on their way to becoming monetized. Now there's 38 million. So there's all these aspirants to do what they've seen other people do successfully. And I think it's a glorious age of opportunity, and it's not age specific. But Esteban, just comment for a moment, because Anthony referred to you. So you've left corporate to go startup. That must be scary. And after you speak, I want to hear Anthony's advice to you.
Yeah, indeed, actually. And I've been talking with you about that one before. It's definitely scary. Like, there's a lot of uncertainty. But I also do understand, like, or what feel it like. And there was also something that Anthony was mentioning. Sure, in Red Bull and corporate world, like, I will have the stability, and I will have, like, you could call it like career success. However, there was no fulfillment. There was nothing that I will actually, to be honest, I will not be like super proud of. Like, sure, we did like many like great adventures, and we actually did many like really successful projects. But at the end of the day, it was not something that I felt had this connection, you know, with like, what was my legacy? What am I leaving behind? Am I making the world a better place for my children or for my son? It was just typical, you know, like we were fulfilling like my role as someone on marketing and business. But when I realized the opportunity to actually go into even like a smaller company or like a smaller project like this one, I thought, oh, actually this idea really, really resonates with me. And it's something that I'm pretty sure that I can help people, you know, improve their lives, improve people to achieve their dreams. And I haven't been able to do a lot of projects that are like on that specific area, like helping people. But I did have a few, especially with Red Bull, when we used to help people, especially young content creators, young athletes, things like that. And I immediately learned that that was one of the most fulfilling experiences that you can have, even if it's not about getting famous, if it's not about getting making money. But if you can actually make someone just have or help someone get a better life or achieve their dreams, that's something that really, really feels fulfilling, and that you're making a difference for people out there. And yeah, it's just completely different, the feedback and the experiences that you get from those kind of opportunities.
Yeah, it goes to the point of meaning. What is the meaning in our life? And I think the full-hearted prosperity is a lovely term, and to see what you're doing now with the Welsh Project and elementary school kids, in addition to your billionaire mates, I can see, I'm almost sensing you, Anthony. Not that I've ever seen you tired or wore down, but I see the continued abundant energy in you and passion, and now you've broadened it out beyond the business world. So what is your advice to the younger people like Esteban? He's taken a step practically, but it's a step towards meaning. Talk about that.
I think there's a building on that expression, which made me think, I forget exactly what it is, but it's not the age you die, it's the tragedy of what dies in you before you die. That's not quite the correct one. The other one I love, which is Einstein, which is knowledge without experience is vanity. And I really think we've got to experience life. And we've got to go through those different decades. And I mean, I'm now in my 8th decade. So what I'm trying to do is to pull together everything I've learned in each of those different decades and try to sort of bring it together. And, Esteban, what I did when I set up I Will Not Complain in 1988, I wrote 12 things I wanted to succeed. None of them were I'm going to make shitloads of money. I'm going to set up the I Will Not Complain challenge for people who've got, who want to achieve something in their life, scholarships. I want to have I Will Not Complain people working full time in organizations so they've got the quality of life way, so you can enrich people's lives. And that was always been my joy. How can we enrich someone's life through personal and practical experience? Because a lot of people just don't understand that success is a state of mind and it's not the amount in your wallet. And I think that's something that we need to sort of educate on, which is something that people don't do it. And I think it is just being unashamedly passionate that you want to do something. I mean, someone who attended a seminar rang me 2 days ago and he said, look, it's pretty cold in Wales at the moment. I'd like to make a donation to the people you're with, who I met at one of your events. Can you think of something? And to me, this is the greatest success, that people who've now worked out what the rivers are, what their self-respect is, we can actually give them some money to start feeling that they can fulfill that, but it's all around serving others. I mean, that's what we've done for the first 99.9% of human existence. We've had to contribute to a community. I don't say we need to go back to the cave or thinking that's the way forward, but how do we have a sense of identity from how we contribute? So, Esteban, I think it's fabulous what you're doing. Just be passionate, and use the words of passion. We've got to cross this river. Drew your own map. We've got to go through those mountains. And which mountains do you want to climb? How can I help you? And it just sort of creates an evocative conversation, opposed to how many things do you want to sell? Why?
Hey, Anthony, would it be possible for us to show any of those images of maps as examples? Or
oh my God, I'd be absolutely delighted to show them.
So either you could screen share now if you can figure out how to do it, or Esteban can throw them up in the editing process.
No, I mean, I can easily screen share. I mean,
so there is a button that says share, I think.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the most satisfactory ones I'll show you at the homeless centre in Wales. And, how they define what prosperity is. So, Chrome tab, select tab, entire screen. There we go. Now, can you see that? Does that give you the entire screen? Can you see a chap there or not?
I can see nothing.
Not yet. Maybe you have to. Let me check.
1 second. Share. There we go.
Sure.
Okay. Can you see a chap now? Looks a safe place for happy faces.
No.
Oh, you might be getting like a pop-up on the top left saying like permissions or something like that. That you have to enable like a permission for
screen sharing permission. Oh, you need to give me screen sharing permission.
Oh no, it might be actually more like on the browser, like on the Chrome side. By any chance, you see like a pop-up on the top left of the screen?
I see it says restore, but I don't need to do that. Studio, 1 second. Record, cancellation, chat, learn. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, let me click on screen share again. Chrome tab, window, entire screen. There we go, entire screen. It's now got entire screen. And it now says share. But is that sharing with you? But is this, if I'm in the whole screen.
So another way of doing this is Esteban, would you send it to the LinkedIn and Esteban will put it up on the screen.
Can you see that? Can you see? You can't see anything now.
No, only you.
Okay, Esteban, why don't I immediately drop this into the LinkedIn, if that's all right?
Perfect. Yes, please go ahead.
If this is a good way of doing it.
Oh yeah, I can just open it on my end and I can show it on the screen.
Okay, 1 second, that'll be great.
No.
It's just
we've got about a.
There we go. It should be with you now.
We'll go another 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you happy with what I've been chatting about, my friend?
Absolutely.
Totally.
It's rich. Okay. So you can see that, Anthony?
I can do, yeah.
Okay. So just guide Esteban through. We can't quite see the map clearly, though.
No, you can't. Don't worry. You'll see it. You'll see it more clearly. But we'll start with him and then just sort of naturally go through. But please go back to the fellow at the top. I'd like to explain who he is. Go back to the top, please, Esteban. There we go. This is a fantastically charismatic fellow called Pete Humphreys. And his father died, left him a little bit of money. And he said, right, I'm going to open a homeless center. He was suicidal himself. His mother, he was really angry with the world. He was on a bridge and his mother came and rescued him. And he said, I'm angry. So she says, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to help people in the same position as myself. And he set up this beautiful place. And if you go on to the next slide, you'll start to see some of the people who are there. So it's a lovely area. It brings people together with all sorts of ex-prisoners, mental health, disabled, many, many other people. And what we did, and please keep on going, is that we started to ask them to think about their territory, what it was. The chap on the right here has been in prison. This is a woman who's got all sorts of, the chap on the right, and he literally had been in prison, lived on the streets for 5 years. And he drew his map about how he could have died, how he could have gone more to prison. And he actually drew that he really wanted to, and he's already on his way to becoming an actor. And he's now studying acting in Liverpool. And he says he is the richest man in the world. And I will be organizing, and he's talked in seminars for billionaires. They love it. And he's going to be one of the speakers at an event I'm gathering to talk about what is wealth. And please just go through some of the other slides, and I'll just briefly chat to them. This is a woman who wanted to talk about, what her life is, where her heart is, and just keep on clicking through them sort of regularly. That's fine. But what it does is it lets people who normally wouldn't have a voice. She's actually a social worker, but she can then talk. You can see the woman on the left has obviously got many, many challenges. But through that, she can talk about, this is who I am, this is how I can contribute, and this is where I need your help and protection. And it's just fascinating. Right. I say, whether we're working with billionaires or others, this is a group of people who are actually going to set up a choir. And there was a map talking about these are the steps that we need to go through. And once we've got the map, it just creates focus and community and gives people a voice who normally feel invisible. And I think this is really what it is. It's giving people a voice that they didn't know. Sorry, Lowell, do you want to say something?
No, keep going. I have a thought, but keep going.
Yeah, please just keep on. Keep on going through them. Yes, the next one as well. Just keep clicking through the slides. And this is when Pete was then talking about, really what it was. This is a fantastic woman called Katie, who's at university, but she's been through many, many, many swamps in her life. And really, she could then do this. This is actually the head of police on the right, listening to Pete, and all of the maps are on the wall. So what they could do is they could then talk about the different people, could say, this is how it's helped me. This is what the center's done for me. This is my journey. These are my hopes and my fears. And you can just see the way that everybody is respected. And this is what I find so much fun from using these metaphors. Please keep on going with the images. So this is the wall of images. Everyone there has got a story. And for people who normally don't have their stories and they're not listened to, these are two homeless people who want to get their children back, and how they're going to do it and what are the steps that they need. He's been in prison. He's been an addict. He's a traveler. And all of this lets him talk about it. So that's probably, enough, but you can just see the beautiful place it is. Actually, go on to Katie, one more down. And that's Katie's maps. These are her different maps, how she set up a soccer team, what she did at university, her challenges of her emotional swamps she needs to go through. And she's more than happy to talk to people about it and let them see where they are on that journey. Maybe just one more. And that sort of shows love and how it's helped people with pain and the struggle and the loss and the other things. But people can then talk about it in a totally non-judgmental, non-confrontational way.
Now, do you find that? Yeah. Sorry, Anthony. I was going to ask, have you found in terms of the mapping, obviously everybody's map is unique to them, but are there any different styles in tone or overall content or what the metaphors are between a group like this who are facing, they've had life struggles versus the high net worth billionaire who on the surface is a success? Are there, generally speaking, are the maps different?
Mate, there's no way you could tell the difference. There is absolutely no way, because we all feel we've got our struggles. We've all got our rivers. We've all got our mountains. Right. We've all got our swamps. And they're all within us because they're ours. Because we're human. Yeah. We've all got this swamp that we find ourselves in, how do we get out of it? What do we need to do? And it's just universal. And that's, as I said, what I'm finding so exciting about this work. And I believe until someone has actually got it, they really don't know what they're doing. Because they're just talking about,
and I suppose,
yeah. What do you do? I mean, you're setting up, this wonderful academy for people to never too late to learn. You're giving them that you're giving them something. You're not just telling them what it is. You're engaging them. And that was my whole thing with I Will Not Complain. One other thing on fear. You can take people up Everest, but you can take people up a 30-foot rock face. If they've never climbed a rock face, to them it's the same satisfaction. And this is what I think
Right.
we've got to do, is we've just got to encourage people to make that first step. I mean, I would be terrified to go sailing. I would never go sailing because it would scare the wits out of me. I'd go with someone. But to do what you've done is just extraordinary. But it wasn't as if you started doing that. You had the big vision and then you did it. But each day, I'm sure, is just as exciting. And a final comment is, why am I so excited about maps, having done it for 25 years? Because every single time I'm going to see something different. I'm going to see a different metaphor. I'm going to hear a different story. I'm going to find something new about someone. I'm going to see that spark come into someone's life. I'm going to see them tell a different way of how they see a river or a mountain. And it's just immensely satisfactory because you feel you're tapping into people's humanity.
And discovery ignites the life genes within us and makes us hungry for more. Hey, is it possible, as we close, to send Esteban the link to your father's BBC clip?
Absolutely.
And if we could kind of show, can we show that now? And Anthony showed this to me yesterday, and I was trying to figure out as I was watching it. All you did yesterday is you said, you'll think this is, you'll get a giggle or something out of this.
Yeah.
You'll think it's cute or something. So I watched it and I was thinking, is that Anthony? Is that Anthony? But yet it seemed like it was filmed many decades ago, but yet it kind of looked your age now. So, but his,
and that's the thing. That much energy. I mean, I've still got Papua New Guinean sort of ice axes with me at this moment.
Nice.
I'm still out there. I mean,
you are still out there. So have you sent the link to Esteban?
I know.
Can you do that?
I will do that. I will show him how to.
Okay.
I've just got to find it. Just 1 second.
And then we'll keep chatting as he gets that up, and then we'll bring this to a close.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anthony has sat on my deck in my solar-powered house, Esteban, and our conversation went on for hours, rambling around our life's journeys, and I've nothing but the greatest appreciation for his life, his experience, heart, and intellect.
That's amazing, and I can imagine actually just hearing about your journey is totally it's mind blowing. It's definitely inspirational.
Well, thank you, mate.
This
yours. So it's around fending off boredom and picking your core values.
Yeah.
There we go.
Indeed.
Thank you so much.
And then just as he's setting that up, something else. I was thinking about this earlier today, actually. I went, in my writing room, I'm in a writing room in Beppu right now, and there's a Catholic church. I'm not a Catholic, but there's a Catholic church across the street. Its bells ring every hour during daylight hours, and they had English Mass today. And so I went across the street, and as I often do in my travels around the world, I'll go to places that have been designated as sacred, shrines, temples, cathedrals, and just ponder. And because I followed my father's footsteps, he was a minister. I was initially a minister, but I was recalling as I was sitting in the church today, listening to an older person speak, and then I had to leave because I had another meeting. But I realized that, one of the reasons I left the pulpit ministry in my 20s is I just realized that I had knowledge, but I had no experience. And I felt like a pretender, like I had no right to be dogmatic about anything. And people are looking for a bit of dogma in the church. And number one, I was a doubter, but also I couldn't, those days we didn't use the term life coach, but a lot of pastoral ministry is just coaching people. And I just realized back then I felt like a fraud to get up and say anything. Number one, because I doubted it. Number two, because I didn't have a life to verify any of this. Now, I kind of feel like there's some things I want to say, even though I'm still learning so much from others.
Yeah, someone once asked me about my thoughts on religion, And I just said, yeah, I've got a really passionate religion, but it's not bothering God. I mean, it's just sort of living life and enjoying it. And, that's sort of,
life is sacred.
Yeah, it
life
really
is sacred, and we
actually,
live in our own cathedrals.
Just while you're there, it's only a minute. You might click on Ricky Serrani. Do you remember Ricky Serrani?
I don't. Okay, here we go. Oh, I remember seeing Taylor commercials on TV. I don't watch TV anymore, largely because I don't have TV on the boat.
Please go one more on. And you might actually enjoy the 60 Minutes one at some point. Just click on Willoughby.
Yeah. Okay, so this is your dad. Just before it starts, just give us an intro to your dad. He was a military man, intelligence officer.
My father was born in India. I mean, I'm eighth generation of basically military behind me. We lost our land in England in the 1840s, so the only thing a son could do was to join the British Army in India. And basically, since the British Army in India was paid more than the British Army, that's where my sort of ancestors all were. So my father's first posting was up on the northwest frontier, chasing Pathans across the Khyber Pass. But in his 70s, you'll see what he was doing. But he then became a journalist when he left the army. He was an Olympic skier in the pentathlon, and sort of gave me this incredible sense of vitality just to get out there. But please, if you'd like to watch it, that's probably enough about him.
Okay, let's watch.
Yeah, Willoughby.
This is Loch Achray, which is one of the most beautiful lochs in Scotland. You know, once upon a time, we British had the reputation of being the maddest and most adventurous people in the world. For some reason, we've lost that reputation, and we have become a nation of watchers rather than a nation of doers. I am going to do myself various water sports to try and show you that no matter what your age, as long as you're properly taught and you apply yourself to it, there is literally nothing you can't do. I also hope that many of you who are watching this program will be sufficiently impressed and enthusiastic enough to try and follow my example and have a go at it yourselves. Because if you try, I guarantee you will succeed. If I can, you can. Well, I'm lying in the water here as warm as anything because I got what they call a dry suit on. Which means that I'm wearing my ordinary clothes underneath.
Okay, that's probably good for the program. Is this the full 60-minute link, Anthony?
Yeah, that's the full 60. That's the full 60. The other thing, just out of fun.
Okay.
Yeah, that will do it. Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll just add then the link to our members as they watch this, so they can watch the whole thing. Hey, this has been a delight, Anthony, as always, to chat to you. Thanks for reaching out to me a few days ago, and later this year, it'd be great to have you back on the podcast and maybe even do a few videos on mapping, and let's extend your reach to the Never Too Later community.
Well, I mean, I'd love to. As I say, we're working with certain people in their retirement. What is it? What are the rivers, the mountains, and the swamps? And it really, really seemed to give them a fantastic sort of sense of perspective. I'm organizing something in England, a gathering of people in March 21st, 22nd. If you have any people in England who would be interested in coming along and meeting a whole lot of other life enthusiasts, they would be most welcome.
So again, those dates are?
March 20th, 21st, 22nd. 21st, 22nd. Yeah, March 21st.
In Tokyo. Okay.
In a place called Amersham, which is pretty close by. So, yeah.
Oh, in the UK.
In the UK, yeah. Which is where I'm.
So what we'll make sure that what you just said appears in the free content that we put on the channel, and then we'll put the information underneath there. We don't have any members. Oh, we do have one member in England at the moment, actually, who may be interested in that. So again, a hearty thank you, sir.
Not at all.
I trust you have a great day in the UK, and thank you for Esteban for organizing this.
And if I can promote what you're doing, I would love to be able to do that, because obviously it's so close to my heart. And, the academy you're setting up, what you want to do, if there's any way that we can sort of help and unlock people's trust and willpower just to realize that they're alive, I would love to do that.
Well, let's see where the intersections are between the full-hearted prosperity movement and the never too late movement.
Exactly.
So,
well, thank you very much.